Hello there. In this tutorial, we are going to make different stages for a game. Specifically, we're going to make this. I have a ready screen, and if I click the mouse, you can come to this game screen. I have made this game in an earlier tutorial, so check this out if you want to make the game itself. But for this tutorial, we are just going to add the title screen to it. So basically what we're going to do is look at how to create different stages to your game, which actually isn't all that difficult. So here's the original code for the game we made. And check out the tutorial for that if you are confused about how to do this. And the only thing we really need to add different stages to it is go to the game loop, and right now we have one game loop, so everything runs in there. And all we need to do is to create different game loops, which you can do really easily either with functions or with methods. So what we basically do is take all of this information and put it in a specific function and run this whenever we want. And in my case, I'm going to put this into a method because this makes it much easier to switch between the different scenes. And that's basically it, so let's get into it. I'm going to start by creating a new class that I call game state, and it doesn't need to inherit anything. And when I initiate it with init, we need self as usual, and we don't actually need anything else. And the only variable we do need is self.state, I called it. And for now, I'm going to call it main game. So right now, our game only has one state, and that's the main game, which admittedly doesn't do all that much. And before we're actually going to use this, let's put all our game into a method of this class. So we're going to create def, and let's call it main game, and need self as usual. And now we take all of this code except for clock.tick, because we can keep it in the main loop. This one doesn't need to change. But everything else, we just put into this main game loop. And then I need to fix the indentation because somehow this one got weird. And this one should be working now. So now we have a class that can run the game loop itself. But obviously we have to turn this class into an object, which I'm going to do in our game screen setup. Actually, let's do it in the general setup. I think it makes more sense there. So I'm going to call mine game_state, and it's game state, and it doesn't need anything else. And now we come to our while loop. We're going to run game state dot, I called it main game. And effectively all we have done for now is take all the code that was in there, so all of this bit, and put it into a method. So we just move the code around for now, which shouldn't really make any kind of substantial difference. So the game runs just as before, no difference there. But the difference we have now is that we can add different methods here and just run them whenever we want. So let's continue by creating an intro scene. So I'm going to call it dev intro. It also needs self, and it is going to be quite similar to the main game. So I'm just going to call quite a bit of the code. And now we need to make some changes. The first one is we don't need any of the target sprites, so that one can go. And the background can stay the same, and anything else can also stay the same. This one we're going to change in a little bit. Let's just comment it out for now. Now we have an intro scene, and let's actually test this one by running the game state, not the main game, but the intro. So if we run this now, we should just see a blank screen and nothing else. We can't even click. And the next thing I want to add is a title screen that just says ready. And for that, in the folder for the game, I have a new file that's called ready text. So I need to import this picture, just like I have imported all the other pictures. So I'm going to do this where I imported all the other pictures, and I'm going to call this ready text. And it's going to be pygame.image.load. And I called it ready_text.png. So now we have a picture. And now we need to blit the picture just like we did before. Kinda like the background. Well, exactly like the background actually. So we need screen.blit ready text. And I want it right in the middle of the screen. So screen width divided by 2 and screen height divided by 2. If we run this now, it should be working, but the text should be off-centered. And I made a mistake because this is not a tuple. So now it should be working. Exactly. So the problem here was that Blit expects two arguments. The surface and a tuple with an x and the y position. But I gave 3 arguments, which was the surface, the x position and the y position, but not as a tuple. So that was the problem here. But when I run this again, it is not in the center of the screen because we centered the top left of this picture, which we can change quite easily because I know it is 230 pixels wide, so I need to subtract half of that, which is 150. And for the height, I need to subtract 33 pixels because I know it is 66 pixels high. So if I run this now, we should have our ready picture right in the middle of the screen. And we do. This looks pretty good. And that brings us to the next problem. That when we click, we want to actually change the state of the game. And for that, I'm going to create a third method that I'm going to call state manager. It also only needs self as an argument, but this method actually organizes which state is running. And all it does is if self.state equals intro, then we want to run the intro. So self.intro. And if self.state is equal to main game, then we want self.main game. So basically what we're doing here is that we control with the state manager and this state what scene is currently going to be run. And we can also change this from inside either of these methods because it's part of the class. So this is going to make it very easy to tell this scene, for example, when it's supposed to be over. And then we can just go to this scene. And the scene we want to start with is called intro. So that's the default one. And when I go to the game loop, all the way down here, I don't want to call intro, I'm going to call the state manager. And now all I need to do is that if we press the mouse button, we are changing self.state to the main game. Now, if I made a mistake somewhere, if self.state, there we go. And if I run the game now, we are seeing something weird. And the reason for that is because all of this should be in our main game method. So I just called state manager too early. But if I run this now, we have our ready function. If we click on it, then we can come to all of this. And that's pretty much what it is. So now you can add as many different stages to this as you want. So besides intro and main game, you could have a second level, or you could have an end screen, or you could have a high score level. And all you need is to change this self.state into whatever scene you want. And then in our game loop, this is becoming really small, to be honest. So there's hardly anything going on. And everything happens in the class, and you can control the flow of the information super easily. And yeah, I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you around.